just the shape of it. Hey, I'm going to get it out right now.
I can't see this for listeners.
It's just beautiful, man. I can't explain it any other way.
I will say that I've seen pictures of yours, and it looks awesome.
What feels the best in my hand? The Xbox One controller.
Welcome, everybody. Today is Tuesday, March 24th, and we are Never Free to Play, a podcast where we talk about all the video games we wish we were playing. I'm one of your hosts, Karch Palashti, joined by my co-host, Jason Wright. You can find us at neverfreetoplay.com, patreon.com/neverfreetoplay, or on all the other social media where we are Never Free to Play. If you have questions, comments, thoughts, ideas, feedback, please send it to us at neverfreetoplay@gmail.com. Jason, how are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good, my friend. I have not left my house for really anything in since like March 13th. So it's been fun though, man. I kind of prefer it, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, it's the circumstances I don't like, and you know, there's a few things we wish we could do. You know, we can't go to church even. Church never shuts down, so that's pretty crazy, and a couple other things, but I do dig the work at home lifestyle.
Yes. Absolutely. And like I said, I think I said in a previous episode, but I do feel like I'm more focused and productive at home because I'm just more comfortable.
Yeah. I'm sitting in my easy chair and my back hurts a bit. I need to start standing up a few more times throughout the day.
That started happening to me today too. So
I was thinking about... Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say I had to come up with a solution for that. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, I was thinking about creating an actual desk out on our coffee table. We did a little furniture rearranging for the homeschool stuff that we have to do.
Sweet.
And that way I could utilize another monitor instead of just using my laptop, which has become very difficult because I have an extra 2 monitors at work plus my laptop, so that's 3 total, and that's it spoils you when you can put 3 windows up at once and never ever have to tab through anything.
For sure. I guess I take it for granted at work. And I'm like really lazy. I don't go back and forth between my monitors really ever. I have my laptop screen and my main monitor, but I really just use the main monitor. But it is nice to just have a bigger monitor, and I wish I could do that at home. And I do have a desk set up, and I could, in theory, set up the laptop to it. Except for I don't have. It's an older laptop. I don't have one of those little converter thingies.
Converter thing?
It's like a display port out. It's like a mini display port. Like I can't just... Yeah, it's really annoying.
I mean, you don't have it, so it's not that interesting. It's stupid, but...
It's really stupid.
What are you going to do? I don't have an HDMI port on mine. I have a single VGA. We have docks at work, and those have all kinds of ports.
Right.
But I don't have a single HDMI port on my laptop.
That's a good point. I do have a VGA, but I don't have a converter for that either.
Is that the right acronym, VGA?
I think so, yeah.
The blue one, ladies and gentlemen. If you've ever looked at the back of your monitor before and you've seen the blue one, you are a tech kind of person. You know exactly what we're talking about.
My home monitor doesn't have VGA in. It's got, I think it's got DVI and HDMI, and that's it.
The newest ones I think that's just how they're made these days, because that's how they should be made. Because come on, let's everybody get this. This isn't even an old laptop. I don't even know why it's like that. They just didn't do that. I think because they designed it with the dock in mind. Maybe I really don't know.
I don't know.
Well, now that banter is out of the way, let's get through a little bit of housekeeping before we get into corrections. Only one interesting point. I got a promotion.
I gave it to him.
Yes. Thank you so much, Jason, for this opportunity. I am now our community manager. What that means is that we finally started tweeting stuff. So to our faithful listeners, you can go ahead to Twitter, and we are at Never Free to Play, and you can see all of our rambling thoughts and our process as we start to flesh this out. I've never used Twitter before starting this little venture, so I'm learning 2 things at once: how to start a podcast and how to use Twitter. And that's probably not the best combination, but we're going to figure it out, aren't we?
Yeah, absolutely. I threw a tweet up there today too. And what I'll say to follow that is, I think for the time being, we'll probably be the most active on Twitter.
Yeah.
don't be on the lookout for any Twitch streams anytime soon. Like Karch said, we're just trying to learn how to do the podcast first, and then we'll see how it evolves from there.
Sounds good. All right, Jason, give us some corrections.
I would love to, because I've been cringing at myself all week, and this is my chance at redemption. So, Greg, cue corrections music right now. Okay, so last week when I was talking about how I used to follow E3, I said that I would wait for the news to trickle out into the ethos. And that's not a phrase, and I knew it as soon as I said it, but I couldn't think of the word I meant, and then Karch corrected me later on in the week. I meant ether. So I meant to say trickle out into the ether, which is a phrase. So
did you look it up? Are you sure? What does ethos mean? Oh, I know what ethos means. It's like ethics, but
don't make me define it. I just know that it's a thing, and it should be implicit.
Yes.
Okay, and then the other thing that we got wrong last week is the double jump in Fallen Order. When we were talking about how you kind of have to like aim your momentum of the second jump, Karch was confusing that with Doom 2016, but he said it still sucks in that game. So
it does.
Yeah, and then the last thing is kind of a tag on from last week's correction. So I'll let you go ahead, Karch.
Ladies and gentlemen, the security of this podcast has been compromised. Greg Arlona is not only wrong, but he's betrayed our trust by just inserting his opinions, wrong as they are, into the middle of this sacred space.
And we do not condone it.
We don't. I'm not going to stoop. I'm not going to argue with him. We're just going to have to let bygones be bygones and bury this hatchet, because otherwise the podcast stops and it's over. And Greg, please mix the podcast, Greg.
Yeah, just mix it. That's what we pay you to do.
I couldn't let it go without commenting. So, that's all I have.
Oh, you're not going to debate him?
No, I'm not.
Okay. All right.
I don't want to see the bloodshed. I don't want to see.
You don't want him to know how wrong he truly is.
Exactly. It has nothing to do with the fact that I have nothing to come at him with.
Okay. Well, we'll just have to debate it next time we're all in the same place. Yep. Or I think with Zencaster we actually can get one other person on here. So
that'd be cool.
Yeah.
We're always looking for a third. That's not true, but sometimes we might be.
Yeah, like one time.
One time. Everybody line up for the coveted third position on the Never Free to Play podcast.
Right. We're taking applications, so...
Right. So while we look for that third person and thumb through those applications, let's go ahead and talk about some news.
Let's do it.
So probably the biggest thing, because there's been real news going on with quarantine and pandemics, but the biggest thing in gaming right now was probably PlayStation 5 did their spec details video. Now, this was intended for GDC, Game Developers Conference, which is always a far more technical, cerebral type of event. It is for people in the industry who work in some capacity there, whether that is on the technical side or the art side. But it's definitely for the people who actually make the video games rather than the people who play them, unless you're a little bit of both or you're particularly savvy in that area. It was Mark Cerny, who is a guy that I forget the importance of, but I know he's kind of on the head of the PlayStation 5 development team. It was pretty good. It was really informative. If you are into tech stuff, I would actually recommend it. It was really well made. It's basically the equivalent of a really fancy PowerPoint presentation. Jason, did you watch it?
I did not. Okay. I thought you said it was boring.
I mean, it is because of how technical it was. So in that sense, it's a dull video. It was not a flashy E3 or Gamescom or like there was no information that interests your everyday. Show me a cool looking video game that I haven't seen before, or one I have that runs amazingly all of a sudden. There wasn't even like a tech demo of any kind, but it was like I said, it was interesting from a technical side. The two biggest takeaways were that they have an SSD, which we already knew, but we got specs on how big it was. It's not quite a terabyte. Xbox Series X is going to be 1 terabyte, and then the PlayStation 5 is going to be like 825 gigs. A small amount of which will be reserved for the operating system, at which point the rest of it will be free for games and anything else you might download to the console. But right now, based on the Series X and the PlayStation 5 now having released pretty much all their like high-level spec details as far as components, whether those are custom or not, etc., the Xbox seems to have pulled ahead. It's got more teraflops. It's got a larger SSD. It seems the PlayStation 5's SSD might be faster, like it reads faster or something to that effect. Again, I watched it. I did start to tune out after a while. I was working at the same time that it was streaming. That was another thing. It was weird that they streamed it, because we'll get to this in a sec, because there was a lot of backlash, but it was very strange that they streamed it instead of simply posting it as a video to watch. But
that was kind of weird, but I guess I kind of get it, because then you have more of like a news, like live feel. Everyone's getting the information at the same time.
Right.
One thing to circle back is that you are correct in saying that the I/O throughput of the PlayStation 5, I'm reading the specs right now, is roughly double, it looks like, what so on the PlayStation 5 it's roughly double the speed of the Xbox Series X. However, the memory bandwidth seems to be a little faster on the Xbox Series X. So I don't know how that will shake out. And it's also kind of interesting that they give you the option for expandable external storage. I don't know how that's going to work. I don't know if maybe they'll have a reserve in the solid state portion. So where, like, let's say you have a game stored on your external, will they pull into this temp storage the part of the game that you need to be able to run it as fast as they want to run it? I don't know how all that will work, but it's interesting. I think at the end of the day, for me, it is going to come down to software, as it usually does.
Of course it is.
So
the difference is, I don't want to say negligible, because somebody out there is going to tell me how wrong I am. And I am. I'm going to say right now, I know it's not negligible. Personally, to me, it's negligible. Funnily enough, that extra 100 something gigs is probably the biggest difference that matters to me right now. Like, why is that SSD smaller? Why can't it just be the same size? Why didn't you just go for the full terabyte? Because I'm lazy and I've gotten way more digital as far as my purchases are concerned. And the fewer things I have to, and I make fun of other people who say this too, especially like industry people who are like downloading 6 games a week because they're getting codes for new releases all the time. Right. And then they have to remove stuff all the time because they're playing a new game. But I've come up against that barrier in on my PlayStation before, and definitely on my Switch. So the bigger the better. And then, back to your point, I've never done external drive expansions or anything like that. But, with the way the games are getting bigger and bigger, and I don't think that's going to stop anytime soon, it might be something I actually try out this time. But then back to your question, what does that look like in regards to, will this be just as slow as a PS4 now with the extra space, or will they actually be able to utilize the SSD and all those super fast speeds or not?
We will find out, I suppose.
Yes, we will. So, Jason, if you had to choose, I know you're these days you're mostly a PC man, but you've got $500. We're going to pretend they both cost the same amount of money. Okay. You can't buy both. Which one do you buy? Right now, which one do you buy?
To me, it's such an easy decision, and I may have mentioned this on our first episode, but to me, if I was going to buy one at launch, it would definitely be the PlayStation, and that's simply because I have a PC that's perfectly capable of playing those Xbox games, and they put everything out day and date on Games Pass. So to me, there's really no compelling reason to own the hardware of the Xbox. And I don't even know that they care. I think they just want me paying them for their games. So I think they both can win. They have different strategies this generation. I mean, I think they truly do. I think Xbox is definitely moving more toward being a platform, whereas PlayStation's still in that old school mindset. So we'll see how it shakes out for them. What about you, Karch?
Oh, yeah. I definitely did mention this in the first episode. It's PlayStation 5, hands down. I have no strong love for Xbox. And the extra fidelity is just not enough to compete with what I know is coming down the pipeline regarding sequels and the possibility of revisiting franchises in the PlayStation ecosystem. And in addition to that, PlayStation has, a history with getting certain third parties to work exclusively on their consoles, even for just a little bit, which would mean, a year at least before I would get to play that game. So if I'm going to buy a console anyway, I'm probably going to go with the PlayStation 5. I will say the one thing that I look at Xbox regarding hardware that I prefer is their controller. They announced they both in form and function, but it's still using a battery. The Xbox Series X is going to use the AA battery again instead of a rechargeable. I know a lot of people groan about that, and in some ways it is more inconvenient, but I don't use anything with batteries anymore. So if I buy a giant pack of AA's, that'll last me years.
That'll last you the whole gen.
Exactly. If I get rechargeables, again, the whole gen. Because right now my PlayStation 4, my DualShock 4 controller is like, that thing stays charged for like a day of me not playing it. Like I can charge it to full, and then when I go to play like the next day, it's already halfway dead, it seems, having not touched it once. It is insane. And I have to buy a whole new controller for that. I don't really appreciate that. So there, Xbox, you have an edge on controllers, and I don't think we've seen the PlayStation 5 controller yet. I know the Xbox one's going to be like identical. So
we've seen like patents and stuff, and we know about that accessory that they're adding to the back of the DualShock 4, which will basically make it into an Xbox Elite controller to have those paddles in the back, but we don't really know what the PlayStation 5 is coming with yet.
Yeah. But unfortunately, we didn't see it. I was really expecting. I know this wasn't that kind of presentation, but it was really weird that they didn't show the box. You're talking about the internals. Why don't you show the box itself? They still haven't revealed what the PlayStation 5 is going to look like, and I can only assume that means that it's still really far away, like compared to what we thought it was going to be. Largely in part due to coronavirus, but
surely they've locked the design in.
You would think. So I'm not really sure what the weight is on letting us see what it looks like.
And Microsoft has already shown theirs. So honestly,
in a video too. It wasn't even. It's not like they brought it out on stage. They showed it at the Game Awards in the first, like within the first hour of the Game Awards, like officially starting. Like after the first couple of awards, it was one of the first big videos. They're like, here's what it looks like. Boom, done.
Right. Which. It's interesting because as much as like I root for Sony, I just feel like they're dropping the ball on this reveal cycle where they were so ahead last time. But I honestly think they really lucked out with Microsoft falling on their face as much as they did last time. And this time, I think they've been plotting this entire generation for this moment. And I don't know what Sony's been doing, but the only thing I can think of is, do you remember, I think it was last fall when the dev kits for PS5 leaked and everybody was making fun of how they looked so much?
Yeah.
Maybe that was the real... I'm sorry, go ahead.
They look like the Roman numeral for 5, like a V, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
The only thing I can think is maybe that's the real design they were going to go with, and after it got made fun of so hard, they're redesigning it.
Just like Sonic the Hedgehog.
Exactly. So, I don't know. We'll see. More to come.
All right, so there you have it. PlayStation 5, despite its best efforts, still wins between the two of us as far as which one we'd rather pick.
That's the thing. It's trying so hard to lose, but it's still winning.
All right. So as we've mentioned several times, and probably will, because this is our life now, there's this big pandemic going on, and everyone's in quarantine, and if you're not, you should be, if you can. Our sympathies certainly go out to people who can't because of jobs, or it's mostly because of jobs.
Yeah.
And if you're providing food and other essential services, thank you, bravo, golf clap to you, because we're certainly in need of all those. But what's not an essential service, Jason?
What's that, Karch?
GameStop. Now, many would argue that GameStop has never been any semblance of essential, and while I enjoy them for the most part, I haven't cared for the way they've been acting this last few weeks. At this point, it's been a roller coaster. Like, before we could even talk about it, they went through this whole cycle of, oh yeah, we're still open, and then they were supposed to close and they wouldn't because they were trying to get themselves marked as an essential service alongside things like grocery stores and utilities and hospitals. Liquor stores, the most essential. But Yeah, things like Animal Crossing and Doom releases and ludicrous practices from executive management had GameStops staying open for a long time. I think it was just yesterday or maybe the day before on Sunday, they finally announced that they would be closing all their stores nationwide, or either that or severely reducing the number that
Yeah,
were open.
I want to say I read an article that said they were maybe doing some curbside service
Mm,
on some of their stores, um, but there are some states that are mandating that they shut down. So
yeah,
I think that's where it stands. Which I mean I kind of get it from their standpoint. I don't think it's the right thing to do. I want to start by saying that, but I think in their head they're probably thinking, if we close, are we going to be able to weather the storm and reopen, because they're already in such a tight spot. So I get that they're struggling for survival, but that's no reason to put all of your employees at risk. And I just think it's the wrong thing to do.
yeah. So sorry, GameStop. I do hate to see you go, but sometimes these things happen. So
Yeah, sometimes you're Blockbuster. What are you going to do?
exactly. And so GameStop, the reason they're so upset is because they deal in physical media, and a lot of people are having problems getting games delivered, whether it's through Amazon or going to the store and picking them up. I know a lot of games were breaking street date early, like people, especially in other countries where they don't care quite as much because they're not quite as high profile. And for games like, I know Nintendo is a big stickler about it, but Bethesda probably not quite as much. People were getting Doom a few days early if they had it physical, so they could get in and get back home and stay home.
Right.
And most of those copies had already gone out by the time everything was really starting to hit the fan. But some games that have gone gold but haven't been distributed yet, so something like Final Fantasy VII Remake, they announced, we're not sure if you're going to be able to get this game if you pre-ordered it. But thankfully, you can buy it digitally. And I know some people have hangups about that, but if you really want the game, it's as simple as clicking that button and buying it there, canceling your pre-order, and then hopefully you do have the lack of a data cap, because those things are pretty big, and I know that is a huge problem for some people. Thankfully, I don't live in a data cap area. I can't imagine what that's like, because
Yeah.
wanton downloading is one of my favorite pastimes.
Right. I've had one before, and it was not cool because we'd hit it almost every single month.
Right.
Just because we're cord cutters, so we stream everything.
Exactly.
So that in gaming, that'll hit it. I know Greg's come up against his a couple times, so I don't.
Do you
I
have
mean, I
one where
think if
you
he
are
was,
now?
no, I do not. I think if Greg was going to download like a game or so, a month, it wouldn't be that big of a deal. But that's the thing, and it kind of circles back to that last thing we were talking about the solid state drive sizes. It makes going physical or digital a little harder for people like that, because you don't want to have to be constantly deleting and re-downloading games just to be digital. But I mean, personally, I used to be a huge physical guy, in terms of like how I wanted to buy games, and a lot of it was driven just based on the deals that you could get going used and pre-owned or whatever. But nowadays, I'm just like, I'm gonna pay the convenience tax, and then I'll just always have it. And I love like Steam, because everything's aggregated and it's just in one place, and I can log into it from any machine, and my whole library is there. And I understand that puts me somewhat at risk if people start revoking licenses or not making these games available. But I think you said to me maybe last week, like, is that really a big deal, considering you can't even fit a whole game on a Blu-ray anymore anyway? So does it really even matter?
No. And the games that you can are typically small indie games, which are almost always only available digitally anyway. I mean, sometimes they do a limited physical run, and that's great as a collector's item, but...
Right. I mean, and I guess in the future they could go back to something more like what Nintendo's doing with the Switch, where they're putting the games on those cartridges, because you can hold a lot of data on those cartridges. But like I said, you're still going to have patches and that sort of thing anyway. So
there's just so much money wrapped up in the shipping pipeline, and that. You know all about that kind of stuff. So like it's just crazy expensive to have to deal with that. And I'm certainly not here to defend the poor, shallow pockets of big gaming or anything like that. If they're not going to sell physical copies, I want to see prices going down, especially if they're going to keep charging for things like microtransactions and little other DLC packages that really aren't worth the amount that they're charging for them. But I mean, it's just a fact of the matter. Physical copies are more expensive to produce and get to the consumer. And it's something that they've, for the longest time, and they still have to because a lot of them are part of their sales, but they've been factoring that into their suggested retail price. So the nostalgia in me would hate to see them go. Even if I never touch a physical game again, part of me just wants to know that they're there,
Yeah. I don't think that they'll ever go because there's always going to be collectors or people who live in rural areas or just people who want to have them look cool on their shelf.
Right.
So I don't think they'll ever go away entirely. But I think this next gen will see even more of a shift towards digital.
Oh, for sure. I think it was, and this is probably like third-hand anecdote, but Borderlands 3 had a huge percentage, or like it was the majority of at least their opening sales. It might have like evened out on the other side, but the opening sales were predominantly digital. No, again, not predominantly, majority. It was over 50%, which is still a big deal, and so especially with something as mainstream, I guess we'll call it, and AAA as Borderlands.
That's an interesting one because that one was a Epic Game Store exclusive.
That is interesting.
So I wonder how that factored in. I mean, I'm sure they had plenty of sales on console, but for the people who did buy it on PC, that means everybody who complained online is a liar because they just went and bought it off Epic Game Store anyway.
Well, everybody on the internet does lie. That's what the internet's for.
You can't lie on there, Karch.
Oh, my mistake. Sorry,
they don't
folks.
let you, man.
Everything we're saying, total truth.
Yes.
No falsehoods here.
Nope.
Nah.
No spin zone.
No spin zone. Something else where you won't find any spinning. Nintendo had their Indie World Direct. They actually had it the day we recorded last week, but I didn't want to bring it up. And I still don't really want to bring it up. I just wanted to mention that it happened. A lot of interesting games. I'll probably post my notes on Twitter or something. It was just a really quick jotting down as games. They had a lot. There were a lot of games and to go through in the really short time that they had. None of them like crazy jumped out at me. They did close with Exit the Gungeon, the sequel to Enter the Gungeon.
Totally.
And it did do a shadow drop kind of thing where they launched later that day. I think it was just a couple hours later and it was available. Yep.
Why didn't you tell me this?
I did tell you that.
Oh my gosh. I should start listening to you.
You should. Listen to me, listen to this podcast, and you might actually learn something.
The one that jumped out at me that you mentioned was the one from Hello Games.
Yeah, that one did look interesting. It's called The Last Campfire. Now, I don't know if this is... I'm pretty sure it's developed by them because I wouldn't think they're big enough to publish something on their own. But it was interesting. It had it's a small scale kind of puzzle game where you take really small instances and try to figure out what it is, basically get through the door, get from point A to point B. You play this little character named Ember, and they look a lot like the protagonist from Journey, but they're like a little squatter and a little bluer. But I would, I think it was only like 20 something minutes. I would definitely check out the video because there were some interesting looking games in there along with those two.
Hello Games, they did No Man's Sky, right?
Correct. Hello Games are the people who developed No Man's Sky, which has quite the history at this point. Mostly positive if you take everything together, but definitely not the best start. Did you play that?
I saw Greg play a significant portion of it, but I have never played it myself. I held the controller and I walked around, but I had no idea what I was doing. That is one that they've recently put out a VR expansion for. So Greg and I have talked about doing it, playing it together. But no, I haven't really played it. Yeah,
I bought it on launch after, I was following it closely. And I wasn't one of those people who felt burned by it. I just thought I would really like it. And then I got in, I was like, no, I don't like this at all. Not even a little bit. And so I stopped playing it and eventually traded it in. But I was probably one of the very few people who had a reasonable reaction to it but also
Yeah.
still didn't like it.
I mean, I think it's fair because it's one of those games to me that felt like, I don't know if this is right to say because it's changed so much throughout its life.
Mm-hmm.
But when it launched, I felt like, well, this isn't something I can beat. It felt more like a Minecraft sort of thing where you just kind of go and experience.
You
and
can.
Like,
there's an end
not
game
for
goal,
me.
but it's definitely more on that Minecraft side. That's for sure.
And I just can't do games like that, which is why I can't do your favorite game, Stardew Valley, because I don't know.
You're totally wrong. Stardew Valley absolutely has a goal.
But
now,
it's
you can keep playing once those credits roll essentially forever, but most people put it down by then if they even get that far.
Yeah, you haven't explained it all to me, but you did say there's really no time frame you have to do any of the stuff in, which to me is the same.
You know
as
what?
saying,
You're right. I did misspeak. I was kind of applying. So in the Stardew Valley is based off a Harvest Moon type situation, and almost every Harvest Moon game has a deadline, so to speak. And it's usually like 3 in-game years later, you're going to get reviewed, and they're going to tally up all that you've done, and you'll either get the good ending or the bad ending. Stardew Valley has that, but then if you miss the deadline and you fail, you can try again the next year. But my point is, you still have I beat it. I did it. I appeased Grandpa's ghost. He loves me.
Good job.
Now. Yeah. Anyway, so that was the interesting thing. A lot of these games, almost all of the games they showed, are coming to Switch first, so it's a timed exclusive. Almost all of them are coming anywhere between spring and fall of 2020. And there are a lot of them, which is interesting because there are almost no first-party Nintendo games announced at all. In fact, I don't think there are any now that Animal Crossing is released. Can you think of one?
No, I'm about to look it up. But I can't think of any off the top of my head, and I know third parties are starting to get to the point where they're not really... I don't know if it's that they're not able to or they're just not really bringing games to the Switch.
Mm-hmm.
But like, I know one big one is Doom Eternal is definitely coming, supposed to be this year. But other than that, I can't really think of any, like Cyberpunk. I don't think that's going to be there at launch, if ever.
No way.
Those big titles that you kind of, when you think of 2020 games,
right?
I don't think most of them are going to be there. So I guess they had to do something to flesh out their 2020 offerings.
Right. I'm just like, and this is easily the longest we've gone without a Nintendo Direct before. Like, this is between since the last one and this one. Like, at this rate, I don't know if we'll get one before we get to E3, or they might put the E3 one up sooner. It's really weird. There's nothing on the horizon. There's Zelda, Metroid, Bayonetta.
It's out there, but
exactly. They're announced, but there's just especially Metroid, but maybe Bayonetta, maybe Zelda, but really unlikely, I would think, until 2021. But yeah, it's really strange because every year since the Switch has come out, there's always been a fall and or winter title that they've kind of like really puffed up, and then usually there's also a slightly smaller title, both first party, that they can then okay, this is coming, and in the meantime we've got these smaller games, these indie games, blah blah blah. Last fall it was Pokemon, and then this year nothing. So that'll be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I'm scrolling through, I don't see anything. Nope.
All right.
I mean,
so there you go.
Somebody can write in and tell us if we're wrong, but I'm not seeing anything big coming up.
All right. So there you have it, folks. Nintendo's done. They're going to be closing up shop pretty soon. Yeah.
Shuttered. And then the last bit of news that I don't care about at all is that the Resident Evil 3 demo dropped, which is cool, but I'm too much of a scaredy cat to do it. I had to quit halfway through Resident Evil 2 remake, so I can't imagine I would be able to get through this.
See, now that's interesting, Jason, because you're playing another scary game right now. Or at least
That's
I hear
right.
it's scary.
He told me that. It's kind of interesting. So I'm playing Half-Life Alyx, which is a VR Half-Life game that Valve just released yesterday. It was kind of a surprise for people when they announced it, because obviously people have been waiting for Half-Life 3 for forever. And I can't remember when Half-Life 2 came out. I think it was like 2007 or something like that. No, 2004 is episode 1. I don't know when episode 2 came out, but
Just a
at any
couple
rate,
years. Yeah.
my point is that it's been a very long time when we've heard nothing from Half-Life, and people have been clamoring, and then all of a sudden Valve drops this. And for those who don't know, Valve has a proprietary VR headset called the Vive, and it's manufactured by HTC, but I think it's a partnership with Valve. And Valve also owns Steam.
Wait, hold up. I thought it was the Index.
So the Index is their less is one of is their like I would put it on par with the Oculus, but the Vive Pro is like their upper echelon model.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, the Index is their newer one. I don't even know if that's out yet.
It is. I mean, I don't know if you can get it because of all the supply constraints these days, but it was supposed to be available when this game came out.
Okay. So yeah,
so tell us how it is.
It is amazing. Oh my gosh. I'm about 2 hours in. I've read that the entire campaign takes about 15 hours, which is kind of lengthy for VR, but at the same time, like, this may be the AAA VR experience that VR needs for people to jump on. So it doesn't feel like a tech demo. It feels like a real game, which is amazing, because I've never really, even playing Skyrim VR, I haven't played Fallout 4 VR, but even playing something like Skyrim VR, it doesn't feel like it was a game that was made for VR. Like it didn't feel like booting up something like God of War and you're like, wow, this is the pinnacle of this platform. So yeah, I've never felt so immersed in VR before. And I will tell you this, I have the Oculus Rift S. So it has one cable that plugs into the PC. No other game has tangled that cord like this game, because I just got lost and I couldn't figure out, like, usually when I'm playing a VR game, I keep like mental tally of which way I'm oriented in the room. So I'm always facing one direction, which is like the front. But in this game, I couldn't keep track of it because I was walking around. I was bending over. I was picking up stuff. I was inspecting stuff. It's really incredible what they've done. What I will say, especially for anybody who's new to VR, the default motion mode is called Blink. And so it's kind of like a teleport, and that's how you move through the world. I would recommend starting with that. Probably don't try to go full out and walk around in VR, or you'll probably get nauseous. In terms of the story, it's fine. It's not blowing me away, but it's keeping me interested. It's a little generic. It's like, the scientist's dad gets kidnapped and now we have to go save him to save the world. But at the same time, I don't mind it. So, I mean, you could say the same thing about The Last of Us, but it's the way they told that story that makes it interesting. And I'm by no means saying this is up there with The Last of Us in terms of the storytelling. I'm just saying it's a generic story, but it's fun. I don't want to get into any spoilers because this game is so new, but it was really funny because you said to me, like, oh, I've been reading this game is scary. And I was like, Karch, let me have my own impressions. Shut up. I don't want to hear it. And then I was playing the game. I was like, oh, this is cool. Because I didn't play Half-Life 1 or 2, but this one takes place in the middle. So I didn't know what those games were about, and I still don't. But I'm playing the game like, oh, cool. Yeah, there's like, I'm in a post-apocalyptic world, whatever. There's these soldier dudes. They're probably the bad guys. And then I have to go into this quarantine zone, and I start seeing zombie corpses. I'm like, oh, crap. I didn't know I signed up for a zombie game. Like, I legitimately didn't know that. So I was freaking out a little bit because, like I just said, I balked like a couple hours into Resident Evil 2 Remake because I couldn't handle it. And now I'm going to play this zombie game in VR. But it's not that scary, to be honest with you. They've done a really good job with the mechanics. So, for example, when you reload your gun, you store ammo in your backpack. So you take your guns like in your dominant hand. So I'm right-handed. Your gun's in your right hand. I take my left hand. I go and put it behind my back, and then I pull the trigger to like grab it, just as if you were going to grab something from your shoulder.
Very
And
cool.
then you pull it up. You have a clip in your hand. You've got to eject the clip out of your gun, which is like your right thumb. So that's like the button on the side of the gun. It throws the clip out. Then you have to put the clip in, and then you have to cock the gun, and then it's ready to go. 10 bullets per clip in your pistol. Fine and dandy until you have a zombie coming at you.
Sure.
But the thing is the AI is really good, and it puts you under pressure, but it doesn't overwhelm you. And so I'm not going to sit here and say that AI is totally dumb, but they'll like lunge at you, but kind of veer off to the right and not actually hit you the first time to give you a fighting chance, which I really appreciated, because there's one point at which you have a flashlight attached to your left glove, and that's your only way to see. So you're going down this like dark tunnel, and you can't see anything. And all of a sudden you catch a glimpse of an enemy, like, oh yeah, that's a zombie, whatever. No, it's 4 zombies, and these little alien things that jump at your face and try to like latch themselves onto your face, and you start freaking out because it's hard not to, because it's in VR, and you're shooting your gun as fast as you can. The game's kind of stingy with ammo, so you have to be pretty conservative about what you're shooting. And then if you run out of bullets, you have to reload your gun. Well, you have to use your left hand to reload your gun. There goes your flashlight. As soon as you put it behind your back, you can't see anything. And then all the enemies start moving around and coming at you from different directions. So anyway, it's a lot of fun. That sounds awesome.
Especially that last part where you're talking about the sheer terror of having nothing to see anymore.
It's insane because it's something you don't think of in a flat experience.
Right. So you said, one of my questions was going to be your Half-Life experience before this. You don't have any?
No, I did play some of Half-Life 2. I've probably got about 2 hours in. Mm-hmm. But I played it so late that it's just like, I understand that it was kind of novel for its time, and it kind of transformed what first-person shooters could be. But playing it in 2010 or whatever year I played it, I was just like, and I kind of lost interest in it. I might go back and play it now. Before we get too far off the topic, I want to say 2 more things about this game. One is the VR puzzles are really cool, and they're clever and they're fun. They're not so complex that I want to rage quit them, but they're not so simple that they're annoying. So for instance, you have this little tool, and on one puzzle, it's kind of like an X-ray where you can like point it at the wall and see where a circuit's going. And then you get to certain decision points where you have to rotate the circuit, and you have to align them up to like unlock a door. It's stuff like that that's like, oh, that's neat. And being in VR makes it even more interesting. I only had 2 complaints. One I kind of mentioned, they're a little stingy with the ammo, but it's kind of neat because it does make you contemplate every shot. I wish that exploration yielded a little bit more. For instance, I saw an air vent that I could really easily get to by putting a crate under it and then jumping up on top of the crate. And then I could like really easily I could reach my hand up and touch the vent, but there was nothing up there. I couldn't do anything. So I'm like, it would have been cool if you just put an ammo clip up there or something. Then my other complaint is probably very much by design, but there's no melee weapon. There's no way to push zombies back.
There's hate that.
Yeah, but it makes that experience more terrifying, which makes it more fun.
That's like, there's no real, unless the zombies are so strong, you're wasting your time. And that's almost never how zombies are done in any media, whether it's video games, television, movies, etc. I am going to have a bat wood stick of any kind on hand, and I just hate it. And I know it's like you said, it's by design, and it would probably ruin the game if you could just bash all their heads in.
Right.
I'm okay if it's not my strongest weapon, but I just can't stand getting in a bad position and then having no recourse whatsoever.
Yes, and that's the other bad
Especially
part about
VR, when you're human response is going to be, I'm going to hit this with my fists now.
Exactly. Yeah, and that should do something. It should push them away from you, give you a second, but it doesn't. The other thing about like what you just said is when you're in blink mode, you can't teleport backwards. So if you get into a situation where you need to go back, you have to use you have to physically turn in real life and run away, or you have to use your right thumbstick to like turn yourself to where you could go backwards, which is really annoying. I don't know why they couldn't have let you teleport backwards. But anyway.
That's a very interesting like crossroads between experience and convention as far as like how we're used to video games and what we like versus, okay, this is VR, which is simulating reality.
Yeah.
Which one do you do? Clearly they chose, for the most part, at least in these quick couple examples, let's make this as real as possible. Do you think this game would be fun without the VR? Because no one's going to get to play this.
That's a really good
as good
point.
As this might be, as many tens as it might get, this is going to have a fraction of the player base it could have had.
So I'll say this. Hold on, I got to look it up. There was a PlayStation VR game that came with the aim controller. I'm trying to remember what it was called. Farpoint. So that game is a game where, I mean, honestly, the parts that I played of it, it was pretty much a walking simulator where you literally walked in a straight line. So every single level, you're walking in a straight line. And then there were just some like spiders that would jump at your face. That game would not be fun at all if not for the VR component, in my opinion. This game is definitely a step above that. But what I will say is that so far, I'm not sure it would be like that much fun without the VR aspect. It would still be fun. I would say that it's so far of what I've played, it's pretty comparable to the first few hours of Half-Life 2. Which is a game that I quit because I wasn't having fun with it. So take from that what you will.
A game that's often heralded as one of the best games of all time.
I know, I'm weird. I don't know what it was. I think part of it was the difficulty and part of it was just getting bored and going on to the next thing. But
sure.
But yeah, I mean, like it's hard to say that for sure because I can't separate the two in my head.
Yeah.
But it is fun. I like I said, the story feels like a real AAA story. The gameplay feels like real AAA gameplay. That said, they would probably have to make the enemy AI a little bit harder for it to be fun as a flat experience.
Well, you're 2 hours in. I guarantee it's going to get harder.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
You're still in like post-tutorial mode.
Yep. So what about you, Karch? What have you been playing?
Well, I talked about Ori and the Will of the Wisps last week, and I beat it Sunday, I believe. Yeah, Sunday morning. I just had like about an hour left. I had gathered all my little story points, and I went to fight the final boss. And I won't I won't, go on too much more because there wasn't anything new or groundbreaking that I experienced in the second half of the game that I experienced in the first half. It all builds on top of itself very nicely, but it's a really great game. It's a beautiful game is the best way to describe it, which was the best way to describe the first one. I said last week that it just took everything from the first game and it made it better, and it really did. I have my own little scale for grading games. I don't use numbers. I have like 4 to 6 terms that I like to use. It varies from time to time, but I have a very coveted spot that I call perfect. And perfect is not like a 10 out of 10 game. In fact, a perfect game by my standards could be very flawed, even from my own perspective. And yet it has a je ne sais quoi in which I just, I put it down, and in some ways I never want to touch it again because of how good a time I had with it. And it's very similar, or that's a very accurate description of how I feel or how I felt when I finished Ori and the Will of the Wisps. It's definitely my game of the year so far. We're in March, so that's not too big a deal, and Final Fantasy's coming right around the corner. But
I'm gonna have some words when we have that discussion.
Oh, that's gonna be a fun conversation. I mean, we'll have to pick one for the channel. We can pick one for each to our own.
Oh yeah, we'll have to.
Unless we really want to fight it out.
No,
we'll have to bring in some kind of coin flipper to
Greg
break the tie. Exactly,
flipper of coins. interrupter of podcasts.
It's my game of the year. Like I said last week, there is a sound bug. I never got a patch. I don't know if I was supposed to go seek it out. These things usually update automatically. So that's what it was like a little over a week. No, well, technically, like a week and a half. I played 12-ish hours of it, and that sound bug never got fixed. There's a couple other places where it just kind of chugs and it slows down.
What were you playing it on?
PC.
Oh, well, that surprises me that it chugged at all,
no,
because
it is not it is not a technically optimized game. I don't know what's up, but there are just a few glaring technical issues.
That never bothers me too much.
It's nothing to turn you away. The sound bug's the worst in a game where the orchestra or the I'm sorry, what's the word?
Music?
The score is such an important component, and it's so good. And everything is built on these emotional scenes during combat, etc. And then just to have that awful buzzing noise come in, it's kind of a huge letdown. But like I said, it's just a really great game. Go play it. Game Pass. If you've never tried it, now's a perfect time to try it and see how you like it, both the game and the service. If you don't want to hook yourself in or whatever, like I said, it's only $30. And, that might not be enough for some people. It's got a lot of replay value. I beat it at 12 hours with, moderate exploration here and there. I definitely haven't 100%ed it. I've probably got like 25% more before I get that 100% marker on the profile.
Are you going to go for it?
No, I would love to, but I'm not going to have time between life and whatnot because,
right.
They're free to play and all that. So
yeah, right. But I get that.
I highly recommend it.
Just so everyone knows, it looks like Game Pass for PC is running that $1 deal again. So if you wanted to hop on, you can get it for at least your first month for $1.
Yeah, I don't know if they started it right after I subbed, or if because I already used a similar deal a couple months ago, it wasn't available. But it wasn't an option for me, is why I didn't bring it up. But I think I remember seeing an article about what you're talking about.
I'm looking at it right now.
No, you're a liar because this is the internet.
Oh gosh. That sound bug. Hey, that sound bug, was it happening on all platforms?
I didn't look too deeply into it. When the top 3 or so Googles, I think someone said it was happening on Xbox too. And I think I was listening to another review on a podcast, and they played it on, I think most of them played it on an Xbox. Maybe one person played it on PC. And I think they all had the same problem. So, yeah.
Very strange.
You been playing anything else, Jason?
Yeah, so while I was waiting for Half-Life Alyx to actually be available over the weekend, I played a little bit of Budget Cuts. It's another VR game, so I had to reinstall my operating system recently, and so I had to get all my VR stuff set back up, and I was like, I just want to download something that would be fun to get into just to make sure all my stuff's still working. So I won't talk a lot about it, but it is pretty neat. It's a VR puzzle game. It's got some stealth elements, and the premise of it is you are a human in an office filled with robots, and you overhear in your cubicle that the robot bosses are calling all of the humans into HR and killing them. And so what you have to do is escape the office without getting killed by all these robots that are looking for you. And some are friendlies and some are like the quote unquote supervisor robots, and they're trying to track you down. It's really fun. It's kind of like Job Simulator meets Portal. So the way that you traverse in this game is you have this little gun. You can put it in either hand and you shoot this little ball, and the ball will have its trajectory and go and roll and bounce wherever it lands. And then wherever it lands, in your hand, you're holding like a portal mirror, and you can look from the perspective of where that ball landed and decide if you want to teleport there. And so it's really interesting because, like, say you're up on a ledge, you can like throw the ball down into a cubicle and then duck and then teleport to the ball, and then you're ducked into this cubicle. So it's really interesting. I remember at one point I was trying to avoid this robot who was coming after me, and he saw me. He was coming full speed, and I went into the bathroom, And I didn't know what to do. So I opened the door and went into a bathroom stall and closed it. And I could hear this robot come in the bathroom. I heard its footsteps. And then I got down on my hands and knees and I could see its feet from under the bathroom stall, but it couldn't see me. And I was just there cowering in fear, hoping that it didn't come into this stall. And it turned around and went out. And it was just like, wow, this game is awesome. So it's very cartoony, very fun. It's nowhere near as intense as something like Half-Life Alyx. It's I would recommend it. I think it's only like $20, maybe $15. At that price, I would recommend it. And also, I wanted to go back and put my seal of approval on at least the first 2 hours of Half-Life Alyx.
Okay,
to
good.
me, that's worth every bit of $60. So in terms of your time and your money, if you're a VR guy, both of these games, or gal, both of these games I think are worth your time and money.
Awesome. Yeah. 2 hours in, if you're already saying yes to $60, then ladies and gentlemen, you know that that's a good game because Jason loves himself a good deal and he doesn't mind waiting for it. So
I am cheap. I did split this game with Tyler,
fair
but
enough.
Tyler hasn't paid me yet, and he won't listen to this podcast, so he won't know I'm calling him out. But
It's too bad.
he needs to pay me, although I'm cutting him a little bit of slack because apparently Steam turned off family sharing for this game, at least in the launch period, and it's unclear as to whether or not they'll open it back up. But we're just going to circumvent that, and maybe I lose my Steam account by saying this, but I'm just going to give him my login credentials, and he's going to download it on his computer anyway. So
That's interesting.
Suck it, Steam.
Suck it, Steam. We don't need you. Please don't suck at Steam. We need you so badly. No, yeah, because they haven't released a game. I mean, they released Artifact, and then nobody played it.
Yeah.
Do you know what that is?
Isn't that their card game or whatever?
Yeah, based on Dota, and everybody hated it, and it's pretty much dead on arrival. I don't even know if they continue to support it or anything, but this is their first major, release, and so of course they have no problem having other publisher games shared across their service.
Right.
But now it comes. That's definitely not a put your money where your mouth is kind of situation.
I know. I thought it was very scummy, but my only thing I can think is they're trying to boost sales at launch, and then like in a couple weeks they'll drop that.
I know exactly why, but it still stands that here's this thing, unless we've never paid attention before, and you can't do that with any new release. But I don't think that's the case.
Yeah, I don't think that's the case. There are a handful of games that I saw on there that you cannot share with. One of those is like Grand Theft Auto 5. Maybe that's just the online portion. I can't remember. I think it was the whole game. Another one is the Ubisoft game where, what is it? Rainbow Six Siege. That's one that you can't family share. So I don't know. I don't know why that they aren't putting their money where their mouth is, like you said, but they're not. So that's something to be leery of if you're trying to split the game. But like I said, I'm just going to give them my login credentials and let them go at it.
Sounds good. So you technically paid $60 for it.
Yeah. And if Tyler decides to be cheap and not pay me, like, I don't even care.
Cool.
I pay the $60.
Right on.
All right. So, Karch, last week you said that you had no intention of playing Animal Crossing New Horizons. I never
said that.
Yes, you did.
No, I didn't. I mean, why would I lie on the internet?
I'm going back to the episode 4 notes right now, and I hope you don't race me there and delete this. But on your what you wish you've been playing, you said Animal Crossing New Horizons.
Yeah, because it wasn't out yet.
Oh, you said, but I'm definitely going to need to pass on it for at least a few months.
Go ahead and have a seat and let me host the show for now. Just, you give yourself and your brain a rest. No, I said those things. I did say those things.
I'm going to take a drink of water. I'm going to clink the ice.
This is a very Rick James, Charlie Murphy
ASMR. Okay, go ahead. So tell us how you lied to us. Go ahead.
Okay, so I lied to you all, and I stress bought it. That's what I did. I stress bought Animal Crossing New Horizons.
I think a lot of people did.
It was one part FOMO, because I wanted it. I mean, I wish I was playing it. And so I made my wish a reality. I didn't let my meme be a dream. And I went,
when you can make your wish a reality, you should.
Exactly. So I bought it and downloaded it. I didn't play it until uh, later on Friday. I think
That sounds right.
I don't even think I played it on my lunch break. I think I waited until after work on Friday to play it.
Wow. The
So,
restraint on
if
this man.
anybody from work is listening, I'm a model employee.
Wow, look at you. Me too, everybody. Me too.
No, so I bought it, and I knew I would probably enjoy it. I haven't played an Animal Crossing game in any real capacity since the GameCube, and that was years ago. That was mostly my sister's game.
Mm-hmm.
So this was like going into a brand new genre for me. I like Harvest Moon. They're not the same kind of games, though. If you like Harvest Moon, check it out. Look at the videos, get the impressions, maybe even buy it. But know that it's not a game like Harvest Moon or Stardew Valley. It's a lot slower paced. You can do lots of things, but Animal Crossing's thing is that it's all real time. So today is March 24th. It's 10:51 p.m. Eastern Standard. That's exactly the day and time it is in Animal Crossing. And in a minute from now, 60 seconds, it'll be 10:52 in Animal Crossing, and so forth and so on. In July, it'll be summer. So anything that's gated behind time, whether that's I have to wait a certain number of days to get something, or I have to wait until a season before, a plant or a tree grows, you are limited to that. And there are ways around that by like changing your in-game clock. And I think there's a character that like screams at you if you do that. And in past games, you had like a slight penalty, like your residents would move out if you did that. So it was kind of discouraged. But I'm not going to do that because why bother?
That's cheating. Why even play the game?
So, yeah, but I love it. I did not expect to like it as much as I do. And I don't know if it's just because the whole family's playing it, which never happens. The only game that we've ever played together is Animal Crossing. It's Mario Party, and that's like a board game. It's they're bite-sized chunks and stuff. But
right.
I introduced this to my daughter because I knew she'd like it. I knew she would love this game. It's all about buying clothes. Excuse me. It's about buying clothes and hats and outfits. It's about looking at cute little bugs and cute little animal people. Like it's a game made for a 6-year-old girl in a manner of speaking. What I was not expecting was for this to take over my wife's life, and as a result, my Switch. She has become very, very into Animal Crossing, and this is not a game she has ever played. She played Harvest Moon for like a week while she was pregnant and on bed rest, and one day she played for probably 16 hours, no joke. And she put it down. She's like, I can't play this anymore. It will ruin my life.
Wait, was that not Animal Crossing, the other one?
This was Harvest Moon.
Oh, Harvest. Okay, gotcha.
It was, Animal Parade on the Wii. But she's just digging it. It's so funny to watch her play it too, because she can't stand the little animal people because they talk kind of goofy, like a little voice and she's like, there's this owl that you have to give bugs and stuff to make a museum, and he puts the stuff on display as exhibits, and she's like, this is the worst part of my day talking to this stupid owl.
But she does it anyway.
Yeah, she's very type A, and so she's going, she's doing, she's got her goal, she's got her tasks, and like something dumb happens, she's like, I don't understand this is dumb, it's inefficient, I don't like it. Partly because of how she is, and partly because she doesn't play video games, so she doesn't. I
like how she plays this game like I do my job.
Kinda, yeah.
I got my task. Oh wait, no, this is stupid. I don't.
So yeah, she's really digging it. She's like, at this point, she's a better gamer than me.
That's amazing.
It's in regards to Animal Crossing, because I woke up, she was playing when I went to bed last night. When I woke up, she had a bigger house than me, because up until then I was technically like one step ahead of them. And Juliet can't she keeps spending all her money every 2 seconds. Like, she goes into the shop and then she complains like, Daddy, where's all my money? I'm like, you spent it all. She bought 4 lawn chairs.
Oh, wow.
I don't even know why.
I'm going to her house, man. I'll have somewhere to sit.
So yeah, it's a really good game. It is a very interesting implementation of grinding. So, we think of grinding, we usually think of an RPG of some kind, and just a singular task that you repeat over and over for a teeny tiny incremental reward that builds towards a larger payout, whether that's like the currency in the game or experience points or whatever. But in Animal Crossing, everything you do is part of the grind. Like, it's so hard to describe, so you get there on this island, Tom Nook immediately puts you into a sizable chunk of debt. You have no money, and you just start picking stuff up.
It sounds like life, like real life.
It's a better life. And right now, in this nightmare that is our lives, if you've got extra time and a Switch on your hands and $60, this game will last you until the Switch is no more, is pretty much what's going on.
So just tell me, I know that you pitched this to me, but how do you make money back to pay back Tom Nook? Is that your ultimate goal in this game?
The ultimate goal is to just have a good time. Yes, there are these milestones. So like I said, you get a loan from Tom Nook to move to this island. And when you move there, you only have a tent. It's this tiny tent. There's almost nothing in it. It's pathetic.
Sounds perfect.
Exactly. So, and there's not a lot for you to do. You got some tools to chop wood and dig holes and go fishing. And so you do those things and you acquire resources, whether that's fish or shells or fruit, and then you sell it to Tom Nook and his little company, and he'll pay you happily. He's not a mean man. He's a very nice man. He's not the devil loan shark that people make him out to be, but, and then you eventually earn enough money and currencies and you pay him back. But then immediately he upgrades your tent to a house, and that house was not free, and you have a bigger loan, and then the house gets bigger and the loan gets
from
bigger.
Tom?
From Tom, yeah. And it's just like, that's the cycle. And eventually
This sounds so stressful.
It's not, though, because there's no, like, whereas Harvest Moon does have a sort of time, like every day in Harvest Moon in game is about 15 minutes, and you have to do an entire day's worth of activities in 15 minutes.
Right, yeah.
It's possible, but there's a huge time management component to it. There's no such thing as time management in Animal Crossing because...
What happens if you don't play for like 3 days?
I don't know yet, because we've played... Somebody's been playing this game almost every hour of every day. I bought it.
And it's 3 different profiles? Or you guys can interact with each other's houses? Or
So what happens if you are playing on the same Switch console, you can have up to 8 profiles, which would represent an individual on the island, and each of you would have your own home. But you do share the same island and you share the same resources, which can be a little tricky. Because if I go... so things like fruit, for instance, they grow in the trees, and you eat them, or you sell them, or you plant more to grow trees or whatever. It only grows so much, so quickly. It's like an entire day's worth of fruit can be gathered up by one person in about 20 minutes. Okay. And then if I do that, and Rachel gets on a couple hours later, there's no fruit for her. So there's this kind of like... And it's intentional. This is what they want. This is how other Animal Crossings worked if you played on the same cartridge or memory card back when those things were relevant. And you would share the same town in that same kind of way. So if you chop down all the trees in town, and the next person boots up their game, they're going to be like, where did all my trees go? So there is this kind of communication aspect, which again is a very key design philosophy. But we're taking it real slow. Like, I love the
Sounds like you have to.
You do, but like I could be looking stuff up left and right now and finding out the most efficient way to game the system and everything. Like, there's already a way to make like 1 million, they call them bells, gold, the money. You can make like 1 million of it in a matter of hours by fiddling around with your time clock and creating a bunch of interest in the bank account that you can create for yourself. But I'm not going to bother doing that because it just kind of defeats the purpose in my eyes. Like, there's this whole amazing aspect of discovery and exploration. Even if the island's like, I could walk from one end to the other in like 60 seconds practically, you'd be surprised how much there is to discover between, one beach to another. And things change every single day, and things are different between night and day. And today it was raining. It's never rained before. And I was like, oh, cool, it's raining. What's that mean? Well, that means that snails come out. Cool, I'm going to catch a snail today. It's like, it's those kind of little tiny micro moments, but there's just thousands of them. And I love it. It's great.
So, and you bought it digitally?
I did buy it digitally, yes.
That means I can play it?
You can technically, but I doubt you're
Sweet.
going to have a moment where Rachel, Juliet, or myself are not playing the game.
I mean, it's not that big of a deal.
No.
So if you wanted to gamify lifestyle creep in the cutest way possible, then sounds like this game is for you.
That's right. And I know there's like codes and stuff. I wish I could give them out. I don't have it yet as far as like come visit my island. I haven't gotten quite that far yet. I'm not ready for people. I think you have to be online at the same time. There's a lot of weird stuff with the multiplayer aspect that has people in a tizzy. I have enough people in this house playing it with me that that's not really a concern for me.
Yeah.
But, if you're alone, a huge part of Animal Crossing is that community. And it's possible you're just going to want to look into how that works for someone who doesn't have a local person playing with them. So yeah, just be wary of that, because again, the way they implemented it has a few people who are new to the series and new to some of Nintendo's more backwards way of thinking. And so they're trying to play it maybe like a more modern multiplayer game, and then finding, oh, it's quite restrictive. Sure. So just be careful if you're going to be playing it like that.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. I mean, it sounds like something I would totally check out for like an hour in 6 months if I'm bored.
Yeah, I think you would hate it personally.
I mean, I pretty much know I would, but you've got me interested in just kind of like, I think if I had the time, if I felt like I had the time,
right,
that this game would be fun for me.
Yeah, you can play it in 20-minute increments. We've been playing it in several hour increments.
Yeah, but I do wonder what happens when you put it down for a week. And did your character starve to death? Like what?
No, it's not that bad. Like the people in the town, from what I remember in past things, like weeds will grow, maybe. Like it kind of overrun your town. I don't know if stuff dies. Like I don't think flowers die, because I don't think they need to be watered to survive. I know that certain town folk will be like, "Hey, where have you been?" That kind of stuff. But it's a game that doesn't punish you for anything, really. Like,
see, that sounds kind of nice.
It is. That's what it's about.
Well, cool.
Let's see. I'm just going to give a quick shout out to a couple other things I picked up at a friend's request. I started playing Magic the Gathering Arena, which is the second attempt for online Magic the Gathering. If you've never heard of it, Magic the Gathering is a very old card game developed by Wizards of the Coast. It's a lot of fun. It's really complicated. It's very expensive in person and online, but Arena is free to play. Arena is Magic's attempt to kind of mimic Hearthstone and their success at a more modern, streamlined UI, and did they knock it out of the park. If you've ever played Magic and you try this out, I mean, you still might hate it because, some people just love physical cards, but this is probably the best you could ever do Magic online, because the old system they used to have, and that client was garbage. It was ugly and slow and confusing, and this one is all the opposites of that. Like I said, it's free to play, but there's hundreds and hundreds of cards, and new ones come in every few months, and the rotation for standard play, it's this whole complicated thing. I'm not going to get into it, but if you like it and you want something to start for free, go ahead and give it a shot. And then a few weeks ago, I picked up Children of Morta for the Switch, and that game is awesome. If you like, roguelike, kind of randomized, repetitive content, sort of like Dead Souls, and you like kind of hacky slashy things, but have a little bit of progression between runs, with randomized dungeons and stuff, go ahead and play that game. Look it up.
Dude, I love all those things.
You would love it. If you like Dead Cells, is basically how I kind of summarize it. You need to go check that game out. It's really fun. I got 3/4 of the way through it, and then let's see what happened. Something came. I think I went on vacation. I think that's what happened. And then
Karch took the last vacation anyone will ever be allowed to take.
It's true. I came back from vacation into quarantine. It was a very strange experience, because it was like the world was like, and it wasn't like I was on some island that was like completely devoid of human contact. I was in Charleston. And then I came back and I was like, how were we just walking around the streets and going to restaurants when all
we're idiots? We're gonna die. Like Rachel went into full on nurse preventative mode, and sure. Well, you were gone for a week, and a lot happened that week.
It was a really big week.
It was weird. It was insane. Like, all of a sudden, Tom Hanks had it, and everybody had it. I mean, when you left, it was fine. It was like, it wasn't fine. I don't want people to feel like I'm downplaying it, but like when you left, it didn't seem like it was gonna do what it did.
Right.
And then a week later, it was like, oh no, it's pretty bad.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's what we've been playing. I'm going to keep playing Animal Crossing. I don't know if I'm going to get to finish Fire Emblem before Final Fantasy comes out. I'm going to try, but we'll see. But speaking of games that I don't know if I'm going to finish, Jason, what do you wish you were playing?
So I kind of talked about this a minute ago, but I think Half-Life 2, as much as I'd love to go, really Half-Life 1 and 2, as much as I'd love to go kind of see the story and learn like how Half-Life Alyx fits into that story, again, I just don't think I'm going to be able to make myself go through that. The intro was really cool when I played it, and it did give you this sense of like me versus the world, which I thought was really neat. And I mean, thinking back on it, I don't know why I stopped playing it, but it's just something made me stop at the same exact part twice. And you know, Tyler and I, there is a mod that allows you to play it as a multiplayer, but it was really glitchy when I tried it, and so that made it not that fun either. So, you know, maybe when I get to the end of Half-Life Alyx, I'll be inspired to go back, but I just don't see that happening. So I'm going to say that one for me. What about you?
So Colin Moriarty of Sacred Symbols got together with a game developer, and he released something called Twin Breaker. And it is his take on a story-based brick breaker like Arkanoid from many, many years ago. And that's just something that you and I have been following for a while. And I took one look at a video, like review of it, and it doesn't look bad. It looks like a brick breaker game. I have no desire to play a brick breaker game. So while I might want to play that and just see what it looks like when a successful video game, you know, journalist, podcaster sits down and like makes a game from the non-technical side, because, you know, for the most part, I don't think he has any technical skills. You know, he wrote it, came up with the concept, but
yeah,
it was an interesting idea. But I think in the light of day, I'm gonna pass on that for now.
Yeah.
But
I
we'll
mean, it's only $10, but I don't see myself playing it.
Okay. I might,
just because I don't have arcade chops, and it looked like it got really complex because you have those two paddles at the bottom, but there's also a paddle on the left and right eventually.
That's what turned me off.
And I'm like, oh man, it's not that like you said, it doesn't look bad. It's just, I don't know that it's for me. It looks really cool. It looks like the coolest brick breaker you could play. I don't think I have the chops for it.
Yep. Agreed. And then just on a side note, you know, since all things considered, life is going pretty well, but it's still a stressful time to, you know, have everybody at home at the same time and trying to do school and work and TVs and dogs and all that stuff. And so I'm just fighting the urge to go to my happy place and just bust out like Final Fantasy VII original or Final Fantasy 8 or 9 or any of those classic RPGs that I just, you know, that I'm willing to play like a million times.
Yeah.
As we spiral towards global economic collapse. But I have Animal Crossing now. I wrote that note before Animal Crossing. I think that's going to save me.
Okay, great. Hopefully it saves us all.
Yeah. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have some big news.
Big.
Huge. We have a real listener.
Woo!
Woo! Get out of the way, fake questions. Because he sent us one too. Not only did he listen to the episode, but he sent us a question to our email address, like actual podcasters.
Which is neverfreetoplay@gmail.com.
Exactly. We can now speak his concerns and his questions. So, from one Sean Mybers, he writes, "Hi fellas, loving the podcast so far, making me super nostalgic and excited to be coming back to blank. Question is," that's redacted by the way. Question is, what has been your favorite controller? Take care, Sean. Jason, what is your favorite controller?
Well, first I just want to say, Sean, thank you so much for being our one and only non-family member listener. It honestly means a lot, even if we've known you for like 20 plus years. We appreciate it, man, and we'd love to have you on sometime if you'd be willing to do it.
Kudos, Sean.
Maybe we could do a D&D sesh as like a bonus.
Yes, people love that stuff. stuff.
That would be cool. Okay, so for me, I thought about this a lot today because I really I love some of those older controllers because they have just a special place in my heart. But if I'm being totally honest with what feels the best in my hand, I think I got to go with the Xbox One controller. Greg got me an Xbox One Elite 2, which I think is pretty new, and it's the one that's got those configurable paddles on the back. It is the coolest controller not to mention, I know some of this depends on your particular hands, ergonomics, what's comfortable for you, what type of games do you like to play, do you want the offset thumbsticks or not? But this controller is amazing. First of all, it comes in a case. You can charge it in its case via USB-C. So you plug the case into USB-C and there's these little magnetic points in the case itself that charge the controller. Second of all, you can configure the sensitivity of the triggers and the bumpers. So if you want it really squishy, you can do that. If you want it really shallow, you can do that. So where there's if you think about the action of how far you're having to push down that button, if you're playing a twitchy shooter and you want it to be really, really tight, you can do that. You can take those paddles off and on the back. You can configure the tension of the thumbsticks. You can change out the thumbsticks, and it just feels so good in my hand. So I got to say that one. If we're going straight up, what's the best controller?
Almost sounds like cheating though, because I don't think anybody else offers a controller that lets you take it apart and modify it.
Well, people. This is not a new thing. People could do it if they wanted to do it.
Yeah. It is prohibitively expensive for some, though.
Well, not for Rich Brother Greg.
No. Rich Brother Greg can buy us all Xbox One controllers if you want it.
Now, to be fair, I did give him my old Xbox controller.
That doesn't sound fair at all.
No, I mean, because I didn't need it anymore.
Yeah, but he gave you a better one.
He did give me a better one. But it was a Christmas gift, so I don't know.
Don't try to spend this in your favor. It's not going to work.
So what about you, Karch? What do you favorite controller of all time?
That's a tough one. I mean, modern controllers are nice. I'm gonna step away from modern because, obviously, with all the buttons and the way the sticks are, and you can click them in, it's a no-brainer. It's between. I've never used an Xbox One controller. I've used a 360 controller. I've never used an Elite either.
So the One is better than the 360 by far.
Is it really?
Yeah, because it's more. It just I can't articulate how good it feels in your hands, but they've ever so slightly changed the just the shape of it. Hey, I'm going to get it out right now. Here's the case.
I can't see this for listeners.
I know, but I'm unzipping it. That's not my pants. That's the case.
I was about to say, I don't.
Okay. This has got a really hard, rubberized, not hard. I shouldn't say hard. It's just beautiful, man. I can't explain it any other way. I think it's a little smaller, a little more angled in. It just feels perfect. It's hard to explain. Anyways, sorry, go ahead.
I will say that I've seen pictures of yours and it looks awesome. I love the color. I love this. It is a pretty controller to look at. So,
and the materials that it's made out of, like I said, it's not just the plain Jane plastic. It's got this kind of rubberized grip around it that feels really good and not cheap. Feels very robust.
Awesome. All right. So for me, it's a toss-up between the SNES and the Wavebird.
Yeah.
I love the GameCube controller. I wish it just had so it's got an L and an R. Mm-hmm. And it's got that little Z, that purple Z button right in front of the R button.
Which is like an R1, kind of.
Kind of, but there's no L.
It's very small.
I wish there was a Z2. I wish they had two, because those triggers, because they're analog. They're not digital.
Yeah.
And the way you could depress them and the feedback and that little springy click it gave whenever you would tap them really quickly, because sometimes you would in those games it kind of actually sucked in because if you had to use them, they just were not made to be used quickly. But playing stuff like Melee, and you could use you could use the shield differently depending on how much you pressed it in. Again, that's just how analog shoulder buttons work, but it was just really nice. I like the C-stick. People make fun of it. I'm like, It's just a second analog stick. Why?
Yeah.
What's the deal? I know it didn't work as well as modern right analog sticks did, but it was. I love that control. I love the color. I love the color of the controller and the color of the buttons as
I
this kind of.
love the way that it wirelessly paired.
Yes,
Because you had that little dongle that would go into the controller slot, and then you had that little wheel on the bottom where you would have to set it to a channel, and then you'd have to set your Wavebird to the same channel. But I'll be honest with you, that's the easiest wireless Nintendo controller to pair of all time. Have you tried to pair a Joy-Con to like another Switch? It takes an act of Congress. It's insane.
No, I haven't tried to because
it's really annoying.
Yeah, it sounds bad. But actually, when I was talking about color, I was talking about the original GameCube because the Wavebird is a little less pretty to look at because it's a little fatter. But I also kind of like that it's fatter. It's got that heft because the batteries are in it too.
Mm-hmm.
But as far, I know it wasn't the only wireless controller when it came out. It was hands down the best wireless.
It was,
and
for
it was
sure,
strange in a way to see Nintendo get something so right from a hardware perspective, especially when, even though I love the GameCube and in some ways it was technically better, in very specific ways, it was technically better than the PS2. They still lost the hardware race, and they had the goofy, mini discs, and like, why is it this cube that has a handle on it? Even though I love both those things,
love cubes, love handles, hate the GameCube.
Exactly. But no, the Wavebird was amazing for all those reasons. But it's nostalgia probably, but I just love the SNES controller so much. Yeah. And I have an 8-bit DOE SN30 Pro, not the Pro Plus, which is basically an SNES controller that has 2 analog sticks, and they're set in the same way that like PlayStation does theirs, where they're not like offset from each other, like at the different. What's the word I'm looking for?
I think your offset is what.
Okay, they're not offset. They're like in a line with each other, just like
they're like the PlayStation controller a little bit.
And then it has an L1 and an L2 and an R1 and an R2. So it has all the extra buttons that you need to play any modern game, except then you have the form factor of the SNES. Specifically, you have the D-pad. Now, it's not as good a D-pad as the original, but it's still a really good D-pad. And I love playing old games that don't really need some of those buttons. And I love playing stuff on my phone. And I bought a clip for like an extra $5 or $6 that will it hooks to the controller, and then there's this little like expandable slot that I can put my phone in, and then I'm immediately playing my phone like a handheld, which is
really nice.
It's really great.
Yes.
Yeah. And it pairs with my SNES Classic. It pairs with my computer, obviously, and then it pairs with my Switch as well. So it's really nice to have, like, I don't want to go drop money on a Pro controller necessarily, the Nintendo Pro controller, the Switch Pro controller. So I got this instead, and I'm really happy with it. There have only been a couple times where I'm like, it's weird that it doesn't have like handles, because you still have to hold the, just the round flat circle part.
Right.
That can be a little bit awkward when you're trying to use the sticks at the same time. But I'm not playing a fighting game. I'm not playing some kind of, really twitchy first-person shooter, so it's just really not necessary. I have smaller hands, I think, on average, and so it actually kind of fits better in my hand that way. If you had larger hands, it might be too small. But no, I love that. So it's between the Wavebird and then the SNES / upgraded SNES.
Oh, and by the way, I think it's worth mentioning that since we have no listeners, we also have no sponsors, so we're not getting paid for anything that we recommend. We don't get codes, we don't get hardware, we get nothing. If we ever do, we'll let you know.
Mm-hmm. Now that you've listened to the whole episode, I'm sure, and got to this very important ethical comment.
Right. So Sean, I think we mentioned something like that.
Sean knows we're on the up and up now.
Right. I hope he does. If we give Kit a shout out, will he start listening?
He did ask for a shout out.
Okay, hold on. I'm going to time code it right here for him. Time code Kit shout out. What do you want to say to him?
Kit, please move back to Florida. I want to see your beautiful family.
Chicago's stupid.
Chicago is stupid. It's so cold and windy. And
Robert knew that.
and not sweltering. No, Robert knew so much better. Now, see, Robert has Stockholm syndrome, and he wants to go back there so badly, but he doesn't know. He doesn't know that the hurricanes and the swamps and the 95-degree weather for 7 months out of the year is actually what he wants and is good for him. So
who doesn't want that?
You apparently.
I mean, I kind of have it here. I mean, in Alabama, it's pretty hot.
Yeah, but it's Alabama.
I know. I like to torture myself.
Jason, you live in Central Time.
Central Time is a better time zone.
Central Time is the worst time zone.
No, it's a way better time zone.
No, it's an abomination as far as time zones.
Not if you're trying to watch Monday Night Football.
Who watches Monday Night Football?
I mean, I don't, but if I did.
Exactly. All right. Well, that about wraps it up for today. Jason, is Greg the worst?
Oh, I had an idea. Hold on.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to find out if Greg's the worst. He is the worst because he bailed on me 2 times this weekend.
That's all I need to hear.
But this is going to be the actual determination on whether or not he's the worst. We're going to call him.
Right on. Keeps worming his way onto this podcast.
Yo, what's
Hey!
Whoa.
You're on the pod, dude.
Oh, what's up?
So you're not the worst this week because I was going to call you to be the test on whether or not you're the worst.
No, I 11:30. This is prime time for me.
Awesome. Well, Karch laughed, but I know you guys can't hear each other. Well, we're finishing up recording here, so I'm going to edit this and get it to you probably in the next 2 hours or so.
Okay. Gucci.
Just say Gucci.
Yeah, it means good, except for it sounds cooler.
Oh, you are the worst. All right, man. We'll talk to you later.
All right, peace.
Bye. Okay, so I think since he said Gucci, he's the worst.
I was just about to say, we extended the olive branch of peace, and then he spit on it and he burned it down.
Oh my gosh, that was terrible.
So everybody, Greg is actually the worst, even when we try to make him the best.
Yeah, I mean, we really do. He did recover from what we truly, honestly, 100% believe it was the coronavirus. He sounds like he's pretty much 100%, so that's good.
Now, was he lying this whole time?
It's the internet, so you never know.
Exactly.
Maybe. But thank you for tuning in, everybody. Please find us at neverfreetoplay.com, patreon.com/neverfreetoplay. Follow us on Twitter. We've been posting. You guys have a fantastic week. We will try, but we are never free to play. That was pretty good. Hey, man, that episode felt so good.
I 100% agree.